Want to win your fantasy football league? Yeah, I know you do, and we can do it together. Watching Fantasy Fluent. Send in your questions, the comment below, or you can send them to anthonyk@sportsfluent.com. That's me, and I'm here every week with the producer, Mike DeFran. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm pumped. I love when I win, and all leagues, every league last week, week one, I'm 1-0. I'm undefeated. I should just retire now.
Yeah. Stop the
Right?
count.
Stop the count. I'm 7-0. Maybe I played too many leagues. That might be a problem. But I know we got some questions, so let's jump right into them, and we'll see if we can give you some good advice to help you get through your fantasy week.
So now that the season has kind of gotten underway and we've seen, we've been re-injected with, NFL football, we're going to start doing stardom sit-ems for each week.
All right.
So I'm going to give you two players at three different positions, and you're going to tell me start them or sit them. So this week, our matchup is start or sit DK Metcalf against the Titans or Justin Jefferson against the Cardinals. Who are you starting and who are you sitting?
Are we going to look at PPR, half PPR, standard scoring? I think PPR is the most common, right? We'll do PPR. Yeah. All right. So I think they both actually have really good matchups. DK Metcalf against Tennessee, Justin Jefferson at Arizona. What I know about last week is that the Arizona wide receivers went off against that Tennessee defense. And DK Metcalf, it was an interesting game for DK Metcalf, but he still had a really good game. Right?
He didn't have any receptions or targets in the first half because it was all Tyler Lockett. And then the second half it was like, oh, here's DK Metcalf.
Oh, DK Metcalf's here. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think he and Lockett both have a huge game against the Tennessee defense. Listen, I think you're good either way, but I got to pick one, so I'm going DK Metcalf is the one this week. I think he has one of those wow games this week against Tennessee.
Yeah. Obviously, that's music to my ears. Next matchup that we have, Najee Harris going up against the Raiders or Zeke going up against the Chargers.
Ooh. So as you know, I'm really high on Najee Harris. I think that week one, both these guys informed based on what we think we're going to get from them, but don't panic on either one.
Yeah. The
offensive line in Pittsburgh is a little suspect, but I think you're safe going with Najee Harris. I think Ezekiel Elliott, listen, it game plan not to run him a lot, right? Let's remember the Bucs defense returned those Super Bowl champs. Bucs defense only gave up 100 rush the entire season, one, and it was Delvin Cook. And he returned all 11 starters from that defense.
Yep.
So it's no surprise that Kellen Moore was like, hey, let's just listen. I don't think you want Dak throwing the ball 60 times on a regular basis, but that was working. So you go with what works. So that's why Ezekiel Elliott only got 11 carries. Now they're going against the Chargers, not as good of a defense, but still a very stingy defense. So I think you're going to see the same kind of, maybe 15 carries out of I think week 3, later on, is when we're going to start seeing him kick in. So I think long term, I think Zeke's the guy. But I think this week in particular, if you got to pick one, you're picking Najee Harris against that Vegas defense. They 26 points to running backs last, whereas the Chargers only gave up about 10.5. So that's the better matchup. So I'm going with Najee Harris, and especially because he's going to get the ball out of the backfield. I know they didn't target him in week 1, but they will start to do that more as the season progresses. And he's going to be you'd love to see a young workhorse running back, and that's what Najee Harris is going to be for the Steelers. So I'm going again. If I have them both, and I do in one league, I'm starting them both. But if you have to pick one, go Najee Harris.
All right, my last sit-em stardom for you this week, we're going to have George Kittle going up against the Philadelphia Eagles or Mark Andrews going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is a good one right here.
This is a tough one. This is a tough one because Kittle, if you asked me before the injury last year, like, this isn't even a conversation. And this is where it's a little, counter to statistics, because Philadelphia played really well in week one. They only gave up 5.9 points to tight end. Kansas City gave up 12. However, I'm not buying Philadelphia's defense 100% yet. I think they're better than we thought they were going to be. But I'm still going Kittle. And here's the thing. Last week, San Francisco got out to a big lead, and then they kind of mailed it in a little bit. And that's when Detroit creeped back up and kind of nipped them in the bud and just kind of put a scare into them for a little bit. But I think you go with who's the best player. And in this case, George Kittle is the better player, and I think he's your choice this week over Mark Andrews.
I would definitely. I would think George Kittle is typically a safe option. The only thing I'm wondering though is, with all of the wide receivers and running back injuries that the Ravens have had, I would think that they're going to want to feed the guy who they know is obviously their best, ball carry outside of Lamar Jackson on that offense. I would think they want to feed him a little bit, but again, George Kittle's a better player, so I'm not going to debate you if you're going to say George Kittle.
Well, here's the thing, right? Mostert was going to be the running back, and he's gone. We don't know. Like, Elijah Mitchell looked good, but we don't know. Are they going to rely on him, or let's be honest? What is the San Francisco offense? What are they going to do? They're going to run the ball, right? And they're going to do short passes to who? To George Kittle. So he's going to get a lot. He's going to get a lot of action this week. So I think you're going to look. I'm not saying George Kittle's going to score 30 and Mark Andrews is going to score 5. I'm saying close, but if you got to pick one, George Kittle's the guy. Now, again, these are tough because you're these are guys that typically they're both. No one has both of these guys in their team. And so it's tough. I think again, you're pretty safe actually with both of them. It's a good problem to have. But yeah, if I have to pick one or the other, I think it's Kittle for sure. Yeah.
All right. So now, kind of getting to some, I guess, questions just about fantasy in general. What do you make of the Texans' backfield? Because Mark Ingram got carries, Philip Lindsay got carries, David Johnson got carries. So if you have any of those guys in your fantasy team, what are you doing, and what do you kind of think their production is going to look like throughout the year?
If I have those guys on my fantasy team, I'm panicking because you should stay away from the Houston Texans backfield. I know that Mark Ingram looked good. Playing the Jag. Tyrod Taylor looked good, but they were playing the Jags. Everybody looks good when everyone's going to look good this year when they play the Jags. So I would, unless is Mark Ingram maybe on my bench? Sure, for a bye week. But I stay away from the Houston Texans backfield because here's the thing. They beat the Jags. How many games are they going to win? Not many. The Texans are not going to win.
17.
Well, I had them. I think I had them at 3 or 4 wins. So if they only have 3 or 4 wins, what does that mean? That means that most games they're going to be losing. And if they're losing, what does that mean? They're going to be throwing. So if they're throwing, this is not going to the backs. Right, it's not going to Mark Ingram. It's not going to Philip Lindsay. It's not going to Dave Johnson. Right, like it's just so. I think week 1 was a bit of an anomaly, and I'd stay. And it's going to be a committee backfield. So you have a team that's going to be losing, so they have to throw. A team that is a committee backfield, right, and a team it's just not very good. So I stay away from them if I can.
All right.
Now, if someone gets injured, now there's an exception. Right, if one of those backs goes down and now Mark Ingram's going to be our guy, he's going to get 30 carries a game, 20 carries a game. Okay, maybe I reconsider, but as it stands right now, I stay away from the Texans backfield.
All right, I would have to agree with that. I don't think the Texans' offensive explosion.
You had them 0-17. That's harsh.
I know. I'm sorry. Sorry to disrespect Tyrod Taylor like that, but I looked at that roster and it just screamed 0-17 to me. But what about a guy like Michael Carter? Is he worth kind of waiting? Is he worth keeping around, or would you just say, nah, go get somebody else? Or does he have potential to be great?
If you have here's another situation, We're talking about a team that's going to be losing and a team that's going to be throwing. And so I'm not saying stay away from all bad teams running backs. I'm not saying that at all. However, he might be a stash. I think second half of the season, he might add some value. But yeah, I'm really hesitant to go unless he, like I say, I'm good with stashing guys, seeing what they do for a couple of weeks, and then be like, oh, okay, there's an opportunity to plug them in, at the flex again during a bye. Those types of that's the ceiling. That's the ceiling for Michael Carter this year.
Yeah, and maybe the last question I'll ask you right here. We got a couple players to discuss: Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. Give me your thoughts on those guys really quick.
I said when Teddy Bridgewater was named the starter, I said this is good for the Broncos receivers. And I actually picked up Judy. Unfortunately, Judy got hurt. That's going to help Tim Patrick, so his value goes up a bit. But Cortland is the number one receiver in Denver. That's going to be the guy who's going to catch some passes. So if you have Cortland Sutton, be happy. If you don't and you need a receiver because Judy went down, you can pick up Tim Patrick. Please do. He's gonna have a stat line like he's gonna take over those receptions for Judy. So I like both of those receivers. Obviously, I like Cortland Sutton better. Unless Teddy Bridgewater, I hate to say it, but unless something happens to Teddy Bridgewater, I like what they're doing with that offense. I like how they looked in week 1. I think the defense is really strong, which is going to give them extra opportunities on offense, which only helps your fantasy value. So I'm high on Cortland Sutton this year, and I don't believe I'm saying that, but because I wasn't saying that when Locke was going to be the quarterback, I'm only saying that because
I actually had Locke being the starter. I thought he was going to be the starter.
I thought he was going to start too, and then I was going to stay away from them in fantasy, and that's why once Bridgewater became, I said, hey, they're going to throw the ball.
Yeah. So big time stuff in Denver. So those are kind of all the questions that I have for you for this week. If you start them, sit them. Talked about Texans backfield craziness. Talked about some wide receivers and stuff. So that's all I got for you this week, Anthony.
All right, that's awesome, guys. Send in your questions, anthonyk@sportsfluent.com, or send in the comments. Be sure to follow and set your reminder because we'll be here every week answering your fantasy football questions. Until next week, be fluent.